All right, let's talk about 1001 Nights. Centuries, this one book has basically painted the entire picture of the Middle East for the West. A world of flying carpets, magic lamps, and heroic storytellers. But the real story of this book? It's way stranger, more complicated, and honestly, more amazing than any of the stories inside it. You know these names, right? They're everywhere. Aladdin, Sinbad, Sherazada. They're part of our global DNA at this point. Characters we feel like we've known our whole lives, from childhood fairy tales to huge blockbuster movies. But what if I told you that the version of the Knights we all know and love is, well, it's kind of a magnificent centuries-old forgery? That the book's most famous stories aren't actually in the original book at all? So, to get to the actual truth here, we've got to start by tearing down some myths. And the key to unlocking all of this wasn't found in some ancient palace in Baghdad, but you won't believe this, in a library in Chicago. Yes, so back in 1948, a historian named Nabia Abbott discovers this tiny manuscript fragment from the 9th century. Now, this little piece of paper was, and still is, the oldest physical proof of the Knights that we have. And this one discovery, it started to unravel everything the Western world thought it knew. Okay, so let's just clear the air on a few things. Is it some revered classic of high Arabic literature? Nope, not really. Medieval Arab scholars mostly saw it as lowbrow stuff, full of, and I'm quoting here, lies and foolishness. Is it a book of children's fairy tales? Oh, absolutely not. The originals are packed with sex, violence, and some very adult themes. Does it have exactly 1001 stories? Not even close. And here's the big one. Are Aladdin and Ali Baba in the original Arabic versions? No, not in a single one. So if the book isn't what we thought it was, then what on earth is it? To figure that out, we have to follow its journey, a crazy journey that spans hundreds of years and multiple continents. The amazing writer Jorge Luis Borges had, I think, the perfect way to describe this. He didn't see it as a single book written by a single person. He saw it as a living thing, something that grew and changed. It wasn't written so much as it was collected over centuries by countless storytellers who had no idea they were all contributing to this one legendary work. And this timeline just shows you that journey perfectly. The book's DNA starts with ancient fables from India, which get absorbed into a Persian collection called 1,000 Stories. Then that gets translated into Arabic around the 9th century in Syria. It was never a fixed thing. Stories were constantly being added and taken away. It's a true literary melting pot. And this created this really fascinating paradox. In the Middle East, the Knights was popular, for sure, but it wasn't considered great literature. You wouldn't use it to teach a prince how to be a good king. But then it gets to Europe, and they see it as this profound, authentic masterpiece. Like, this is the definitive voice of the Orient. Talk about a disconnect. Okay, this brings us to the single most important person in the history of the Knights. And it's not some storyteller from ancient Baghdad. It's a translator in Paris who basically created a literary Frankenstein's monster. This is Antoine Galland. In 1704, he publishes the first ever European translation of the stories, and it was a cultural bombshell. Europe went completely crazy for it. Galland didn't just translate a book, he kicked off a full-blown cultural phenomenon. But there was a problem. The public was screaming for more volumes, more stories, more knights. But Galland's original manuscript from Syria only had so many tales. He was running out of material. So, what's a guy to do? He found a news source. Right there in Paris, he gets introduced to a young Syrian man named Hana Diab. Now, Diab was an incredible oral storyteller, and for a few weeks, he just sat with Galland and told him all these tales he knew from back home. And this is the absolute crucial point. The stories that Diab told him, including, you guessed it, Aladdin and the Magic Lamp and Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, are what scholars now call orphan tales. Why? Because for centuries, people have been looking, and no one has ever found a single ancient Arabic manuscript that contains them. Just think about that for a second. The most famous stories from the Arabian Nights have no known Arabic paper trail. They show up for the very first time in history, in a French translation. This is exactly why one scholar called Galland's work a Frankenstein's monster. It's the perfect description. It was stitched together from his original Syrian manuscript, the oral tales he got from Hana Diab, other random texts like the story of Sinbad, and even a bit of his own creative editing to make it more appealing to French high society. But how could a book be changed so much without just falling apart? How could you just plug new stories in? The answer is the book's secret weapon. It's absolutely ingenious narrative engine, all built around the legend of Scheherazade herself. We all kind of know the frame story, right? A betrayed king, Shahryar, starts marrying a new woman every day and then executing her the next morning. It's horrific. To stop the slaughter, the vizier's daughter Scheherazade volunteers to marry him. And she survives by telling him an amazing story each night, but always stopping on a cliffhanger, forcing him to keep her alive just to hear the ending. Now here's where we find that secret weapon. It's called the nested story technique. It's like a set of Russian nesting dolls. Scheherazade tells a story about a fisherman. But inside that story, the fisherman finds a djinn and has to tell him a story to save his own life. And inside that story, a character tells another story, and on it goes. This structure is the whole key. It's basically a storytelling machine. Because the narrative can just branch off into an infinite number of sub-stories, you can add new tales or take old ones out without ever breaking the main frame. This is how those orphan tales, like Aladdin, could be slipped in so seamlessly. The book was literally designed to grow. And this incredible structure leads to the book's most profound and, well, kind of mind-bending legacy. It leads to a moment when the story itself seems to look in a mirror and almost shatters into a million pieces. It all comes down to a single, pretty terrifying moment deep inside the collection. On the 602nd night, something truly bizarre happens. So, Scheherazade starts telling a story about a prince who finds out his wife is being held captive by a jealous jinn. But wait a second. That is almost the exact same story that drove King Shamryar mad and started this whole murderous rampage in the first place. For a brief, terrifying moment, the story folds in on itself. The king is listening to his own tale. The story is about to eat itself. If he were to stop her and say, hey, I know the story, this is my story, the whole thing could just collapse into an infinite loop, trapping them all inside forever. And that brings us right back to Borges, who leaves us with this chilling thought. That moment on the 602nd night completely blurs the line between fiction and reality. If a character in a book can suddenly become a reader of his own story, what does that say about us, the people reading the book? It's the final, unsettling question from a collection that isn't just a bunch of fairy tales, but an invitation to question the very nature of storytelling itself.